Welcome to Monk's Temple. Find a place of comfort now. Let your chair hold you. Let the air move freely around you. We begin a long, quiet journey tonight. Not a journey of miles, but of seeing. In the deep stillness of Buddhist wisdom, we find a simple truth: our greatest clarity is often born from the heart of our deepest fog. Sometimes, when the outer world begins to soften and blur, it is not an ending. It is the first whisper of an invitation to look in a different way. To look inward. So let us begin not with lessons, but with a story. This is the story of the gardener who forgot the sky. There was once a gardener named Anicca who tended a vast and intricate botanical garden. Her world was one of intense, close detail: the velvet curl of a petal, the precise vein on a leaf, the delicate stamen dusted with pollen. Her life was her work, and her work was defined by perfect, focused sight. She could spot a single aphid from 3 paces away. But as the years passed, a haze began to settle over her world. The sharp edges of her beloved flowers softened. The vibrant reds and purples bled into one another like wet watercolors. A constant, dry heat lingered behind her eyes, as if she were standing too close to a furnace. The fear that came was quiet and profound. If she lost this detail, she lost her purpose. Her world would become a wash of meaningless color. This fear led her to a small cottage at the very edge of the gardens, where an old groundskeeper lived. He was a man of few words, known for his ability to revive even the most wilted plant. Anicca, her voice tight with anxiety, told him of the blurring colors, the burning, the dread of a world losing its definition. The old man listened, his gaze resting not on her anxious face, but on a spider weaving its web in the window. He listened to the words, but he heard the deeper confession. I am afraid of losing the patterns that give my life meaning. After a silence filled only with the sound of a boiling kettle, he spoke. You speak of the fading detail in your garden, Anicca. But you have come seeking a stronger lens, when the true need is to step back from the flower bed. In the path laid out by the Buddha, we learn of attachment to form. We cling to the details, the perfect petal, the exact hue, and believe they are the whole truth. When those details fade, we feel we are losing truth itself. But what if the fading is simply the world asking you to see the garden, not just the flower? The groundskeeper then began to share a way of being, not a list of tasks. He spoke of the body as an ecosystem, a forest. If the forest soil is depleted, if the streams are blocked, the tallest tree will suffer, no matter how much you water its leaves. The eyes are the highest leaves, drinking the light. To care for them, we must tend to the roots and the rivers below. He offered practices, calling them ways of watering the roots. He began with the ritual of the first dew. In the silent moment before the day claims you, he said, his voice like soil, rich and deep, your own body offers its first medicine. The moisture that gathers in your mouth upon waking is considered, in the old ways that align with the Buddha's teaching on self-reliance, to be a potent concentrate of the night's repair. Before you wash, before you speak, honor this inner offering. With a gentle fingertip, transfer a touch of this moisture to the corners of your closed eyes. This is not biology. It is a covenant. You are making a promise to your own vision: I am your first and most devoted keeper. Your care begins with my conscious attention. He then described a cleansing rain. Take a mouthful of cool, clean water. Hold it not as a task, but as a held prayer. Over a basin, let your eyelids become the earth awaiting a gentle storm. With soft, puffing motions of your cheeks, let the water mist over them in a fine, sprinkling shower. This is a baptism of gentleness. The action creates a rhythm that echoes the pulse of life itself, helping to lift away the microscopic debris of sleep and yesterday dust. The water, blessed by the inner chamber of the mouth, carries a different signature. As you do this, imagine you are washing away not just dust, but the stuck energy of seen arguments, crowded streets, frantic images. You are purifying the instrument that receives the world. His teaching always returned to the middle way, the heart of Buddhist practice. The Buddha taught to walk the path between extremes, he murmured. Light knows extremes, too. The aggressive, overhead sun can drain and scorch. But the sun as it touches the horizon, in the gentle hello of dawn and the soft goodbye of dusk, is a healer. It is light in conversation with the earth. To sit quietly, blinking softly, and let this golden red light bathe your eyes is to drink an elixir of balance. You are syncing your own inner rhythm with the great, slow heartbeat of the planet. You are not staring at a ball of fire, you are allowing your senses to commune with a source. You are letting that ancient, gentle fire mend the frayed wires of perception. He taught the sanctuary of warm darkness. Bring your palms together. Rub them slowly, deliberately. Feel the friction birth a comforting heat. This is your own vital energy, awakening. When your palms are warm with your own life, cradle them over your closed eyes. Do not press. Simply create a cave of dark, nurtured warmth. This is the darkness of a seed deep in the soil, full of potential. In this dark, fed by your own warmth, the eyes surrender their endless job of looking. They stop. They return to the source. They remember how to simply be, not see. This act is the deepest kindness, to give the sense that is always reaching out, permission to turn inward and rest. The movements for the eyes he described as a dance of liberation. Your eyes are not just tools. They are dancers who have been told to stand in one spot and stare at a single point. Their muscles, meant for sweeping waltzes across horizons, have grown stiff and sore. We must remind them of their birthright. Slowly, with mindful grace, guide your gaze upward, as if tracing the path of a soaring eagle. Downward, as if following a drop of rain to the earth. Side to side, as if greeting the entire wide horizon. Paint great, lazy circles in the air, as if your gaze is a brush painting the sky. You are not just exercising muscles. You are reclaiming the full, spacious freedom of your perception. You are breaking the chains of a narrow, strained focus. He then told Alara a story, a simple tale about two wells. In a dry village, there were two wells. One was deep, its water cool and sweet, but it required a long, steady pull on the rope to bring it up. The other was shallow, its water slightly bitter and warm, but it was easy to reach. Most villagers, tired from their labors, drank daily from the shallow well. It was quick. Over time, they developed a low thirst that was never quenched, and their eyes grew dull. One old woman, however, made the effort each dawn to draw from the deep well. Her movements were slow, her effort consistent. She drank the cool, sweet water. Her energy was steady, and her eyes remained clear and bright into her old age. The groundskeeper said, the quick, easy stimulants of modern life. The bright screens, the rushed food, the constant noise, They are the water from the shallow well. They give a jolt, but leave a deeper thirst. The practices I share, the morning rituals, the quiet gazing, the mindful powder, they are the deep well. They require consistency. They do not offer a frantic, instant clarity, but a slow, enduring vitality that seeps into the very bedrock of your being. True healing is a deep pull, not a quick sip. Let us continue our journey here in the quiet space of Monk's Temple. The story of the gardener and the two wells reminds us that the path to clarity is one of deep, consistent nourishment, not quick fixes. Now, the old groundskeeper turned to the substance of that nourishment. He spoke of an internal purification, a concept deeply woven into the fabric of Buddhist thought, that a clouded mind and a toxic body are reflections of one another. The garden's health, he said to Alara, does not begin with the blossom, but with the soil. If the soil is rich, well-turned, and clear of choking weeds, the flower has no choice but to be radiant. The body is our soil. The eyes are its most delicate blossoms. To force a flower to bloom with stimulants while ignoring the poisoned earth is an exercise in futility and suffering. He introduced the trio of fruits, Amla, Bibataki, Haritaki, the great harmonizers known as Triphala. This is not mere medicine, he explained. It is a teacher of balance. Soaked in water overnight, it becomes a lunar-infused wash, a way of bathing the eyes in the intelligence of the forest. Taken internally, it is a gentle broom for the inner pathways, sweeping the channels clear so that the vital essence of digestion can travel unimpeded to the highest leaves, your eyes. It represents the Buddhist principle of right action. A simple, consistent practice that supports the whole system, creating the conditions for natural health to arise. He then guided her to a powerful practice for the mind, a training in focused attention that the Buddha himself perfected. In a room you have made dark, he whispered, his voice becoming the only sound, place a single candle. Sit. Let your spine be a stack of golden coins, steady and dignified. Let the flame be the only star in this personal night sky. Now, soften your gaze. Let your awareness rest upon the flame's heart. Watch its gentle dance, the stillness at its core, the playful light at its edges. Your thoughts will come, like boats on a river. Acknowledge them, and let them drift past, returning your attention to the flame. If tears come, let them flow. They are ancient rivers cleaning the windows of the soul. This practice, Tritaka, does more than strengthen the eye. It trains the wanderer within to come home. It cultivates the one-pointedness of mind that is the foundation of all insight meditation. When you finish, warm your palms and cradle your eyes, drinking in the afterglow held within your own darkness. You are learning to hold light within. There was a keeper of a coastal lighthouse, a man who lived in a world of two lights, the fierce, rotating beam of his tower that cut through storm and fog, and the soft, steady glow of the oil lamp in his cottage. His duty required the powerful beam, and he grew to love its brute strength, its ability to dominate the darkness. He began to use it even for small tasks, reading his ledgers, mending his nets, finding the gentle cottage lamp feeble and useless. In time, his eyes grew strained and weary from the constant assault of the intense, sweeping light. He developed headaches that pulsed with the rhythm of the beam. The world outside the lighthouse began to look dim and washed out. An old sailor visiting the coast saw his suffering. He said nothing, but that evening, he extinguished all lamps in the cottage except the small oil one. He invited the keeper to sit. At first, the keeper was agitated by the dimness. But as he sat, his eyes, starved for gentleness, began to relax. The soft light was enough. It revealed without demanding. His headache melted away. The old sailor said, "You have confused power with clarity. The great beam is for warning and guiding ships from afar. But for seeing your own hands, your own heart, you need the gentle flame. You have been using a tool of long-distance salvation for the intimate work of daily seeing, and it has blinded you to your own hearth." The groundskeeper told Alara, "Our modern devices, our frantic pace, they are that harsh lighthouse beam. We use them for everything, even the intimate work of living. The practices of palming, of soft sun, of screen curfews. They are the gentle oil lamp. They provide the light by which we can truly see our own lives, without strain." The groundskeeper then spoke of the necessity of rest, of creating a visual Sabbath. "The most fertile fields are those that lie fallow," he said. "They are not lazy, they are gathering strength in silence. Your eyes need fallow time. The artificial dawns of screens that have no true night are a profound violence against the natural rhythm of sight. You must, as an act of fierce compassion, declare a time each evening when all such false suns are set. Let the night be dark. Let your eyes know true darkness, punctuated only by the soft, living light of a flame or the moon. This is not denying yourself, it is gifting your most precious senses the deep, restorative silence they crave. It is in this silence that repair happens, at a level deeper than any herb can reach." He then revealed the daily nourishing powder, framing it not as a cure, but as a covenant. "This mixture," he said, "is a daily promise you make to the soil of your body. Fennel, with its cool, starry intelligence. Almonds, little storehouses of the oils that feed the nervous system's light. Rock sugar, a crystalline carrier of sweetness that harmonizes. A few grains of black pepper, the spark, the awakener, ensuring the nourishment is not passive but actively received. Ground together and taken each morning, this ritual is your daily act of tilling the soil, of adding rich compost. It says, today, I will build the foundation for clarity from within." In a valley where they wove famous tapestries, there was a master weaver who could weave scenes of such realism, they seemed to hold light. But he worked only with the brightest, most vivid threads, crimson, gold, azure. He disdained the subtle hues, the grays, the soft browns, the pale blues. His tapestries were dazzling, but to look at them for long was exhausting, they had no place for the eyes to rest. Over years, his own sight became jumpy, unable to settle. Colors seemed to vibrate painfully. He sought out a hermit who lived in the forest, known for his peace. The hermit's hut was sparse, but sunlight filtered through leaves in dappled patterns of light and soft shadow. The weaver, agitated, explained his problem. The hermit simply pointed to a patch of sunlight on the floor, moving as the leaves swayed. "Watch," he said. The weaver watched the dance of light and shadow. His frantic eyes, forced to follow the gentle movement, began to slow. The contrast was not harsh, but fluid. The shadow was not an absence, but a part of the pattern. After an hour of silent watching, a deep calm settled over him. The hermit said, "You have filled your sight with nothing but high notes. There is no music without the pauses between. The health of vision lies in its appreciation of shadow, of softness, of rest. Your cure is not in a new thread, but in learning to see, and value, the spaces in between. This story reflects a core Buddhist tenet: emptiness is not nothingness, but potentiality and peace. Our visual recovery requires us to value the dark, the soft, the fallow, the pause. The groundskeeper looked at Alara, whose face had begun to lose its pinched fear. "You came with a fear of blur," he said. "I have given you ways to clean the lens and nourish the source. But the Buddha's ultimate medicine is this: understand that the eye sees form, but it is the mind that sees meaning. A mind clouded with fear of loss, attached to a past clarity, will see threat even in a softening light. Tend to the body, yes. But tend more diligently to the mind. Cultivate a mind that sees change not as loss, but as nature. A mind that can find peace in a blur, as easily as in a sharp line. For when the mind is still and clear, the world it perceives softens into beauty, however it appears." Alara returned to her garden. She began with the morning dew ritual and the deep well powder. She observed the soft light at dawn. She created a screenless evening hour, sitting instead with the dying light. She did not do everything perfectly, but she did it consistently. The burning sensation was the first to retreat, as if a hidden furnace door had been closed. Then the ache softened. One morning, as she examined a new rosebud, she realized she was not straining to see its edges. They were simply there, clear and definite. The blur had receded like a tide. But the greater change was subtler. She found herself spending less time hunting for aphids and more time sitting on a bench, seeing the garden as a whole. A living, breathing tapestry of green, where the slight blur at the edges only added to its depth and mystery. Her physical sight had steadied, but her inner sight, her ability to perceive wholeness, had been born. This completes the first cycle of our teaching. But the path is long, and wisdom has many more lamps to light. Let us settle deeper into the stillness here at Monk's Temple. The journey from fear to understanding, from a blurred line to a clear perception of the whole, is a sacred path. It is the very essence of the Buddhist pilgrimage from ignorance to enlightenment. Tonight, we explore another facet of this journey: the relationship between our sight and our inner stillness. For in the philosophy that flows from the Buddha's awakening, a distracted mind creates a fractured world, while a collected mind perceives a harmonious one. Let us begin with a new story, a tale not of gardens or maps, but of bells. Once, in a monastery high in the mountains, there was a novice monk tasked with ringing the great bronze bell at dawn and dusk. His name was Lien. The bell's sound was meant to be a single, pure note that would spread across the valley, unifying the hearts of all who heard it in mindful attention. But Lien had a restless mind. As he pulled the rope, his thoughts were elsewhere. On his unfinished chores, on a difficult scripture, on the chill in the air. The bell would ring, but the sound was marred. Sometimes it was a weak clang, cut short. Sometimes it wavered, the tone splitting. The head monk observed this but said nothing for many days. One morning, the head monk approached Lien. "Come," he said. He led Lien not to the bell tower, but to a still pond in the monastery garden. He handed Lien a small, smooth stone. "Drop it into the center of the pond," he instructed. Lien did. Plink. A perfect set of concentric circles rippled out from the point of impact, expanding to the very edges of the pond. "That," said the head monk, "is the sound of a collected mind. A single action, a single point of impact, creates waves that travel with perfect integrity. Now, he said, handing Lien a handful of pebbles, scatter these across the pond. Lien threw them. The surface erupted in a chaotic mess of conflicting ripples, the waves crashing into each other, creating a jumbled, disordered surface. That, said the monk softly, is the sound of your bell when your mind is scattered. Many points of impact, each weak and conflicting, resulting in noise, not a clear note. Lien understood. His problem was not his arm strength or the bell itself. His problem was the scattered pebbles of his attention. The head monk then gave him a practice. Before you touch the rope, stand for 3 breaths. Feel your feet on the wooden floor. Hear the silence. Gather all the scattered pebbles of your mind into the single stone of your intention. Then, and only then, pull. Lien did so the next evening. He gathered himself. He felt the rough hemp of the rope in his hands, his own breath, the anticipation of the silence about to be broken. He pulled. Boom! The note was deep, pure, and unwavering. It rolled across the valley with a majestic clarity that brought tears to his eyes. The head monk nodded. When the mind is one, the action is clear. When the action is clear, its effect is harmonious. This is true for ringing a bell, and it is true for seeing. This story illuminates a profound principle for our visual well-being. Our modern life is a constant scattering of pebbles across the pond of our attention. Every notification, every tab, every quick glance is a pebble. Our eyes are forced to jump from one tiny splash to another, never resting, never allowing a single, clear set of waves to form. The strain we feel is the strain of this visual chaos, the conflicting ripples of a fractured attention span. The practices we discuss. The flame gazing, the eye exercises done with slow intention, the screen curfew, are not just eye calisthenics. They are practices in gathering the pebbles. They are the 3 breaths before pulling the rope. They train the mind behind the eyes to be single-pointed, to choose one thing to look at, and to look at it with full, undivided presence. This collectedness, this samadhi, is the precondition for prajna, wisdom. And it is also, quite practically, the precondition for rested, resilient eyesight. I remember, years ago, visiting an old blacksmith who also repaired antique spectacles. His workshop was dark, lit by the forge's glow. He showed me a pair of 19th century glasses, the lenses thick and scratched. People think these are ruined, he said. He didn't reach for a modern electric polisher. Instead, he took a series of gradually finer cloths, each imbued with a different natural oil. Olive, then almond, then the most subtle jojoba. With a rhythm that was meditative to watch, he began to polish one lens. He didn't attack the scratches. He worked with the curve of the glass, his movements circular and patient, as if coaxing the clarity back to the surface. After a long while, he held it up to the forge light. The scratches were gone. But more than that, the glass had a luminous, liquid quality that modern plastic lenses lack. It seemed to hold and soften the light, not just transmit it. The clarity was always in the heart of the glass, he said. The scratches were just on the surface, a record of rough use and neglect. My job isn't to add anything. It's to patiently, gently, remove the obstructions. Most eye troubles are like these scratches. They are surface-level obscurations from strain, toxicity, and habit. The gentle practices, the washes, the nourishment, The rest, they are those fine cloths and oils. They don't create new eyes. They patiently, consistently, polish away the wear and tear of living, revealing the innate, perfect clarity that has been there all along, waiting in the heart of the material. This has always been, for me, a perfect metaphor for the Buddhist path to healing. We are not acquiring something we lack. We are removing the dust, the greed, the hatred, the delusion, the scratches, that cover our inherent Buddha nature, our inherent clarity. Let us weave in another essential thread, the wisdom of the peripheral. We spend our lives in focused, central vision, reading, typing, targeting. But our eyes are designed for a vast, panoramic awareness. This is not just a physical design, it is a philosophical one. Imagine an ancient sentry standing guard at the edge of a sleeping camp. If he stares only at the dancing flames of the central campfire, he becomes hypnotized. His peripheral vision collapses. He becomes blind to the subtle movements in the forest shadows, the potential threat, but also the owl in flight, the shifting breeze in the grass. His world shrinks to a circle of orange light, and he becomes both entranced and vulnerable. A wise sentry knows to rest his gaze softly on the middle distance, letting the firelight be in his lower periphery. This way, his visual field remains wide and receptive. He sees the whole clearing. He is calm, alert, and truly seeing. Our modern digital life has made us all sentries staring hypnotically at the campfire of our screens. We have sacrificed our panoramic, receptive vision for a narrow, demanding one. The result is a visual trance, accompanied by strain and fatigue. The practice of looking into the distance, of doing the wide-eye circles, of spending time in nature without a focal point, is the practice of the wise sentry. It is reclaiming your peripheral sovereignty. It is a return to a state of relaxed, global awareness. In Buddhism, this relates to the practice of mindfulness or sati, a broad, non-judgmental awareness of the entire field of experience, not just the glaring, obvious object in the center. Healing our sight involves healing our relationship with the entire visual field, learning to soften the obsessive focus and welcome the quiet, informative periphery. The groundskeeper from our earlier story would now speak of asanas, of yoga postures, not as exercise, but as geometry of grace that redirects inner rivers. Poses like Shashankasana, the child's pose, or forward folds, he might say, are not about stretching for the sake of flexibility. They are acts of humble inversion. As you bow your head below your heart, you are, with gentle gravity, inviting a tide of vitality, of oxygen-rich blood, to flow toward the eyes and brain. It is a silent offering from the body to its highest perceptive organs. It is the soil sending its nutrients up the stem to the flower. Similarly, poses like Baddha Konasana, the butterfly, open the hips, which in many energy maps are storehouses of stagnant energy. Releasing that lower body tension often, mysteriously, relieves pressure in the head and eyes. The body is a single, interconnected system. You cannot have clear windows in a house that is built on a trembling foundation. In a tradition now lost, there were masters who practiced calligraphy not with ink, but with clear water on dark stone. Their art was ephemeral. A beautiful character would be brushed into existence, shimmering under the sun for a few glorious minutes before fading completely away. A young student, attached to permanence, struggled with this. He would tense up, trying to make his waterstrokes last longer, pressing harder, which only made the water run and ruin the form faster. His eyes grew strained from the effort of trying to hold the vanishing characters in place. The master took him to the stone. "Watch," he said. The master breathed, centered himself, and with a fluid, effortless motion, brushed a perfect character. It lay on the stone, luminous and complete. He did not cling to it. He simply observed it with a soft, appreciative gaze as the sun gently drank it away. The character faded, leaving only a damp shadow, and then nothing. "The beauty," said the master, "was in the doing and the seeing, not in the holding. Your strain comes from trying to make the water behave like ink. You are trying to make sight a permanent possession. But sight, in every moment, is like water on stone. It is a fresh, transient gift. Receive it, appreciate its clarity in this instant, and let it go. The next glance will be a new gift." When you stop trying to possess and solidify your vision, the strain of clutching vanishes, and your eyes can relax into their true nature, receiving, not grasping. This is a direct reflection of the Buddha's teaching on Anicca, impermanence. Our suffering around diminishing eyesight is a suffering of clinging to a past clarity, trying to make it permanent. Relief comes when we meet each moment of sight, whether crisp or soft, as a fresh, ephemeral gift to be experienced fully, without the burden of comparison or the fear of its inevitable change. We have now woven threads of attention, polishing, periphery, and impermanence into our tapestry. Let us take a breath here, in the middle of our journey. Let us move gently forward in the peaceful space of Monk's Temple. We have been exploring vision as a river that flows from the mountains of the mind, through the landscapes of the body. Any obstruction in its course, a scattered attention, a tense muscle, a toxic burden, creates turbulence. The practices we discuss are the work of a compassionate engineer, removing debris and widening the banks so the water can run clear and strong. Now, we turn to a subtler, more profound source of obstruction, the stories we tell ourselves about what we see. In Buddhism, this is the realm of sankhara, mental formations. Our perceptions are instantly colored by our biases, fears, and desires. We do not see the world, we see our idea of the world. And sometimes, the most healing thing for our physical eyes is to question the painful stories our mind's eye is projecting onto them. Let us listen to the tale of the silent gong. In a temple known for its discipline, there was a gong that was struck only once a day, at the profound moment of midnight. It was said that if you listen with absolute purity of heart, the sound of that gong would answer the deepest question of your soul. A young monk, tormented by chronic headaches and eye strain that no herbal poultice could ease, approached the midnight gong with a desperate question: "Why must I suffer this pain in my head and my eyes?" He listened fiercely as the master striker swung the mallet. Boom! The sound was immense, filling the universe. But all the young monk heard was the echo of his own suffering. The sound seemed harsh, accusatory, an amplification of his own pain. He left in despair. The next night, his headache was worse. In a state of hopelessness, he returned. This time, he had no energy to hold his question. He simply knelt, exhausted, his mind a blank field of fatigue. The striker moved. Boom! The same sound filled the same space. But hearing it from a place of mental emptiness, something shifted. He didn't hear an answer to a question. He just heard the sound. Pure, vibrating, empty of meaning. It washed through him, and as it did, a strange thing happened. The tight band of pain around his head seemed to vibrate in resonance with the gong and then dissolve. His strained eyes, resting in the darkness, felt bathed in the auditory waves. For the first time in years, there was space, there was silence within the sound. He hadn't cured his eyes, he had temporarily stopped the painful story his mind was telling about his eyes. The relief came not from changing the sensation, but from ceasing to resist it, from letting the pure experience of the moment wash away the narrative of suffering. This story points to a vital insight. A great deal of our visual discomfort is not just physiological, it is a feedback loop of mental tension. We see a slight blur. The mind panics, it's getting worse. I'm losing it. This panic triggers stress chemicals, which tense the muscles around the eyes, restrict blood flow, and amplify the blur. The mind sees the increased blur, panics more, and the loop tightens. The practices of palming, of darkness, of soft gazing, are like that moment of exhausted surrender before the gong. They are deliberate acts of breaking the thinking about seeing. They create a gap in the mental story. In that gap, the nervous system can reset. The muscles can unclench. Fresh blood can flow. The healing is not just in the action, but in the cessation of the internal war. Years ago, during a period of intense work that left my eyes feeling like hot coals, I rented a small cabin near a river. The main window faced the water. For the first few days, I'd sit and try to relax my eyes by looking at the beautiful view. But my mind was still busy. Look at that beautiful tree. I should appreciate it more. Is my eyesight getting better yet? That log looks blurry, is that normal? It was a disguised form of the same strain. One rainy afternoon, too tired to even think, I just slumped in the chair. My gaze fell on the window itself, not through it, but on it. I watched the raindrops slide down the glass, tracing erratic, shining paths. I wasn't looking at the river beyond, I was focused on the moving jewels on the surface. My focus was close, soft, and meaningless. There was no scene to appreciate, just random movement. I stayed like that for perhaps 20 minutes. When I finally shifted my gaze back to the river, a miracle had occurred. The world beyond the glass was not just clear, it was vivid, drenched in color and depth, as if the rain had washed not just the window, but my very retinas. I had, without knowing it, practiced a form of eye rest by giving my mind a neutral, non-goal-oriented visual task. It broke the story of trying to see well. Sometimes, the best thing for our eyes is to give them something pointless and beautiful to do, freeing the mind from its burden of interpretation. The groundskeeper's wisdom would also encompass the element of touch, of physical reassurance. He might speak of the practice of gently massaging the temples, the brow bone, the jaw hinge. These are not just pressure points, he would say. They are gates. When we squint, when we focus hard, when we worry, we lock these gates with tension. Using the pads of your thumbs to make tiny, gentle circles at these junctions is like speaking a soothing word to a frightened guard. It says, you can stand down. The watch is over for now. This simple touch tells the entire facial armoring system to relax, and that relaxation telegraphs directly back to the eyes, allowing them to sink deeper into their sockets, into a state of safe repose. This is an embodied expression of metta, loving kindness. You are directing compassionate, physical attention to the very sites of your own held suffering. Now, let us consider another original story, which ties the health of our sight to the courage of our perception. In a windy city, there lived a kite maker famed for crafting kites of incredible beauty that flew on the gentlest breeze. He hated the fierce north wind, for it would shred his delicate creations. He would shutter his workshop on north wind days, sitting in the dim light, angry and tense, his eyes aching from peering in the poor light and from the scowl permanently etched on his face. One year, a challenge was issued, to fly a kite higher than the city's highest tower. The gentle breezes could not manage it. The kite maker, in his ambition, finally faced the north wind. Trembling, he launched his strongest kite. The north wind snatched it, and for a moment, he was sure it would be destroyed. But he had built it well. Instead of tearing, the kite caught the powerful current and began to soar, higher, higher, past the tower, into a realm of sky he had never seen. He had to tilt his head far back, his eyes wide open to the vastness, tracking the tiny speck. The scowl left his face. The tense squint vanished, replaced by an expression of awe. The relentless wind cleaned the smog from the sky, and the sunlight was blindingly pure. That night, for the first time in years, his eyes did not ache. He realized his enemy had become his ally. The force he had resisted and feared had given his sight a new dimension, both literally, into the heights, and figuratively, into courage. Sometimes, the conditions we blame for our strain, the demanding work, the intense focus, are like the north wind. We cannot avoid them, but we can learn to build a stronger vessel, a more resilient focus, and then allow that intensity to lift our perception to a new height, rather than letting it break us. The practice of looking at the distant horizon, of sun gazing, even of challenging eye exercises, is facing the north wind. It is a controlled, respectful engagement with intensity that builds strength and ultimately brings a feeling of exhilarating clarity, not fatigue. This brings us to a crucial, often overlooked partner to sight, breath. They are entwined like vines. Observe yourself the next time you try to see something small and detailed, or when you feel visual strain. You will likely find your breath is held, or shallow, high in the chest. This is the breath of effort, of grasping. The body interprets this as a state of threat, tightening the visual muscles for fight or flight focus. Now, practice this, soften your gaze on a distant object. Now, take a deep, slow breath in, and as you exhale, imagine the breath flowing out through your eyes. Feel a sense of release, of softening, in the eye sockets themselves. Do this 3 times. You will likely feel an immediate sensation of relief. This is the breath of release, of letting go. By consciously marrying a soft exhalation to the act of seeing, you are telling your entire psychobiology that the act of perception is safe, it is allowed to be easy. This is a direct application of anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, one of the Buddha's core teachings. You are using the anchor of the breath to tether the wild horse of visual effort, gentling it into a state of calm awareness. We have now sat with stories of mental stories, touch, challenge, and breath. Our tapestry grows richer. Let us continue to breathe and be still, here in the sanctuary of Monk's Temple. Our journey has taken us through the quieting of the mind stories, the gentle touch of release, and the unifying power of the breath. We now come to a fundamental, yet often forgotten, principle in the Buddhist understanding of well-being, the principle of dependent arising. Nothing exists in isolation. The health of the eye is dependent on a vast, interconnected web of causes and conditions. From the food we eat and the thoughts we think, to the way we move and the quality of light we allow into our lives. To believe we can heal our sight by focusing on the eye alone is like trying to clean a single leaf on a dusty tree while ignoring the polluted air and parched roots. Let us explore this web through a story of interconnectedness. In Buddhist cosmology, there is a metaphor called the net of Indra. It is a vast, cosmic net that stretches infinitely in all directions. At each intersection of the net hangs a brilliant, multifaceted jewel. Each jewel reflects every other jewel in the net, and within each reflection is the image of all the other jewels, and so on, infinitely. Every jewel is utterly unique, yet contains the entirety of the whole within it. Now, imagine one of these jewels is your faculty of sight. It feels cloudy, dim. You could spend all your energy trying to polish that single jewel, but if the jewels around it, representing your liver, your digestion, your spine, your emotional state, the sunlight, the digital glare, are also clouded or casting distorted reflections, your single jewel will never stay clear for long. True, lasting clarity comes from understanding and tending to the reflections. When you improve your digestion, one jewel, it reflects as clearer eyes, another jewel. When you soften your emotional anxiety, a jewel, it reflects as relaxed ocular muscles. When you consume clean, vibrant food, it reflects as nourished retinal cells. The practices we discuss are not isolated tricks, they are conscious adjustments to the jewels closest in the net to your sight. The morning ritual polishes the jewel of circadian rhythm. The triphala cleans the jewel of internal purification. The screen curfew clears the jewel of mental quiet. You are not fixing a broken part, you are bringing harmony to a reflected whole. With this understanding, let us add more strands to our web, more jewels to our net. Let us consider the role of sound. It may seem unrelated, but in the network of the senses, none are truly separate. There was a community of weavers who worked in a noisy, clattering workshop. Their tapestries were technically proficient, but they lacked a certain life. The weavers themselves were prone to headaches and strained, tired eyes. A wise woman visiting the town suggested a strange experiment. For 1 hour each day, the master weaver would work in complete silence. No talking, no clatter of shuttles, just the faint sound of breath and the whisper of thread. The weaver, skeptical, agreed. The first day in the silence was agonizing. His mind raced. But he persisted. Slowly, over days, the silence ceased to be an absence and became a presence, a spacious, gentle container. He noticed his hands moved with more grace. His color choices became more intuitive. And then he noticed his eyes. The frantic, darting quality of his gaze as he checked his work softened. His vision seemed to settle, to deepen. The sharp edges of the threads didn't seem to jab at his eyes anymore. The silence had not changed his eyes, but it had changed the nervous system that operated them. The constant auditory assault had been keeping his entire body, including his visual muscles, in a state of low-grade alarm. The dedicated silence allowed his system to down-regulate into a state of rest and digest, where healing and clear perception naturally arise. This is why creating a quiet environment for your eye practices, the palming, the flame gazing, is not a luxury. It is a direct nutrient for the nervous system that controls your sight. The Buddha emphasized samma ajiva, right livelihood, which includes creating an environment conducive to peace. Your sensory environment is your livelihood for your nervous system. Now, let us turn to a more subtle jewel, the posture of your spine. The energy channels that ancient systems describe as carrying vital force to the head are profoundly influenced by the alignment of the spine. A slumped posture, with the head jutting forward, the common screen posture, is like putting a kink in a garden hose. The flow of neural signals, blood, and subtle energy to the eyes is diminished. Simply sitting or standing with the crown of your head gently lifted, as if a golden thread is pulling you upward from the heavens, can create an immediate sensation of lightness behind the eyes. It opens the channel. This is not just mechanics, it is a gesture of dignity and receptivity. You are aligning your physical form to receive light and clarity, not to hunch over and defend against it. In the ruins of an old temple, there stood a broken marble column. For decades, it lay tilted, its beautiful carving obscured by dirt. A delicate ivy plant began to grow at its base. Instead of growing straight up toward the sun, the ivy followed the tilt of the column, growing at a strange, twisted angle, its leaves straining to turn toward the light. It survived, but it was clearly struggling, its form contorted. One day, a restoration team came. They carefully righted the column, cleaning it and setting it upright on a new base. The ivy, over the following season, did a remarkable thing. New shoots grew straight upward from the old, twisted vines. They found the sun with ease. The old, twisted parts remained, but the new growth was vibrant, healthy, and direct. Our body is that column. Our eyes are the ivy, striving for light. If the structural column of our posture, our skeletal alignment, is tilted and broken by habit, the ivy of our sight will grow in a strained, contorted manner, struggling for nourishment. The simple, conscious act of sitting and standing tall is the first act of restoration. It is re-establishing the true vertical, so that the seeking tendrils of our vision can reach for the light without unnecessary struggle. Every time you correct your posture, you are the restoration team for your own temple. Let us weave in another personal reflection, on the nature of light itself. During a power outage some winters ago, I was left with only 2 candles for light. One was a modern, scented candle in a jar, with a thick wick that produced a tall, flickering, smoky flame. It gave a lot of light, but it was jumpy and cast dramatic, moving shadows. Reading by it was possible, but tiring. My eyes were constantly adjusting to the flutter. The other was an old beeswax taper, with a steady, calm, almost blue core to its flame. Its light was softer, more even, and profoundly steady. I found I could read by it for hours without fatigue. It occurred to me then that the light we subject our eyes to has a quality, not just a quantity. The flickering, pulsed light of LED screens, even at a low brightness, is the modern, jumpy candle. The steady, full-spectrum glow of the sun or a true incandescent bulb is the beeswax taper. While we cannot always control our light sources, we can seek out the steady flame. This is the deeper reason behind sun-gazing at the stable horizons, or using the flame of a real candle for tritaka. We are allowing our eyes to bathe in and synchronize with a fundamentally steady, coherent source of light. This coherence is calming to the entire visual processor. It is a homecoming for cells that evolved under the sun and fire, not under the frantic, digital strobe. Finally, for this part of our journey, let us touch on the jewel of community, of shared intention. Healing is not a solitary confinement. In the Sangha, the spiritual community of Buddhism, support is a cornerstone. It is said that in a certain magical forest, the trees could sing. But a single tree, singing alone, produced only a thin, reedy note. When the wind blew, however, and all the trees sang together, the forest would produce a harmony so vast and beautiful it could heal the sick and sad who came to listen. A man with failing eyesight came to this forest, desperate. He stood by one grand tree and begged it to heal him. The tree sang its single note, which was lovely, but nothing changed. Disheartened, he sat down to rest, and in his rest, he stopped listening to just one tree. He began to hear the whole forest. The deep bass of the oaks, the high whisper of the pines, the middle tones of the maples, all woven by the wind into one living symphony. As he listened to this whole, without focusing on any part, a deep peace settled over him. He fell asleep. When he woke, the world was not miraculously sharp, but it was softer, and the strain was gone. His healing had begun not from a single remedy, the one tree, but from immersing himself in the supportive, harmonious whole, the forest. Your journey to better sight is like this. Do not just do your eye exercises in isolation. Share your intention with a supportive friend. Listen to guided practices like this one. Be part of a community, even a silent, digital one, that values natural well-being. You are a tree in a forest. Your strength and vitality are supported by the chorus of shared intention and wisdom around you. Let the wind of community carry you. We have now sat with the interconnected net, the role of sound, posture, light quality, and community. Our understanding deepens from a single point of focus to a holistic embrace. Let us sink even deeper into the calm of Monk's Temple. We have been contemplating the web of life that holds our vision, understanding that to touch one strand is to send a vibration through the whole. Now, we turn to a more intimate, internal landscape. The landscape of emotion and its direct, often shocking, impact on our physical sight. In Buddhist psychology, the mind and body are not two. They are one continuum. A harsh thought is a physical event. A sustained worry is a chemical bath for our cells. And our eyes, as the most sensitive outward-facing organ of our nervous system, are immediate reflectors of this inner weather. Let us explore this through the story of the frozen lake. High in the mountains was a lake so clear and still it was said to be the eye of the mountain itself. It perfectly reflected the sky, the clouds, and the surrounding peaks. A hermit lived by this lake, and his clarity of mind was legendary. One year, a great sorrow fell upon the land. The hermit felt this sorrow deeply, but instead of letting it move through him, he held it. He froze it inside. That winter was exceptionally cold, and as the hermit's inner world froze, so did the lake. A thick, opaque layer of ice sealed its surface. It could no longer reflect the sky. It could only show a flat, gray, fractured version of the world above. The lake's true function, to reflect with clarity, was lost. It was not broken, but it was blinded by a barrier born of unmoving cold. When spring finally came and the hermit, through tears, allowed his sorrow to thaw and flow, the ice on the lake cracked and melted. Slowly, day by day, the reflective surface returned, once again showing the depth of the sky. Our emotional states are like that. Chronic anxiety, unresolved anger, held grief, these are forms of inner cold. They create a tension, a frozen rigidity, in the very muscles and fluids of the eyes. They cloud the lens with the static of stress hormones. The world we see through this frozen layer appears flat, threatening, or blurred. The thaw begins not with the eyes, but with the heart. Practices of forgiveness, of compassionate self-talk, of allowing tears to flow, these are the sun that melts the inner ice. When the inner landscape thaws, the eyes, like the lake, can once again perform their natural function, to reflect reality, not our distortions of it. This leads us to consider a powerful, often overlooked practice, the practice of deliberately seeing beauty. This is not a vague suggestion, but a neuroscientific and spiritual imperative. A young apprentice to a goldsmith was taught to recognize pure gold by its specific, warm hue. His master would hold up a nugget and say, "See this color. This is the truth of gold. Remember it." The apprentice spent his days in a dim workshop, sorting dusty ore. His eyes grew tired, and he began to doubt he could see the true color anymore. Everything looked muddy. The master, seeing his struggle, did not give him more ore to sort. Instead, he took him outside at sunset. He pointed to the western sky, ablaze with gold, crimson, and amber. "Look," he said. "Do not analyze. Just drink it in. Let your eyes be filled with this." The apprentice did. He let the magnificent, free light pour into his weary eyes. It was a bath of pure, undemanding color. When they returned to the workshop, the apprentice picked up a nugget. To his amazement, the true gold color seemed to leap out at him, vivid and unmistakable. His eyes had been recalibrated by an experience of effortless, expansive beauty. The master said, "You cannot learn to see truth in the dimness by staring harder at the dimness. You must remind your eyes what truth looks like, in its most glorious form. Then, they will recognize its subtler versions." For our eyes, constantly bombarded with the visual noise of clutter, advertising, and sterile screens, we must provide this recalibration. We must gift our eyes daily feasts of natural, unstructured beauty, a flowering plant, the play of light on a wall, the intricate pattern of a leaf, the vastness of the sky. This is not a break from healing, it is the core of it. You are reminding your visual system of its highest purpose, to rejoice in the beauty of existence. In Buddhism, this is close to the practice of dana, giving. You are giving your senses the gift of nourishment, and they repay you with renewed sensitivity and joy. Now, let us address a modern specter, digital strain, through the lens of a timeless story. There was a city built entirely of polished, reflective stone. Every wall, every floor, echoed with sound and bounced light fiercely. The citizens, born into this, grew accustomed to the constant visual and auditory rebound. They developed a quick, darting way of looking, never letting their gaze rest anywhere for long, and they spoke in short, clipped sentences to avoid the confusing echoes. Over generations, they began to suffer from a peculiar malaise, a feeling of never being quite present, of always being slightly startled, and of chronic eye pain they called stone glare. A sage entered the city and was immediately overwhelmed. He retreated to the only garden, a small place with soft earth and unruly, non-reflective plants. He invited the suffering citizens to sit with him there, in silence, and simply look at the dirt, the moss, the irregular petals of a flower. At first, they fidgeted, their eyes jumping. But slowly, the non-reflective, absorbing surfaces of the natural world gave their eyes a place to rest. The visual noise stopped. Their gaze could settle, deepen, and relax. The stone glare began to fade. The sage explained, "Your city is a hall of mirrors. It gives back only versions of yourselves and fragments of light. Your eyes have forgotten how to drink, because they are always defending against the rebound. The natural world does not reflect you, it absorbs your gaze and offers something other in return. It allows your vision to complete its journey, not bounce back at you half-finished. Our digital world is the city of echoing walls. Screens reflect our intentions back at us instantly, they are interactive mirrors. Our eyes are in a constant, low-level state of interactive defense. The essential healing practice is to spend time each day in the garden. In nature, or with natural, non-reflective objects. Let your gaze be absorbed, not reflected. Let it complete its journey into depth, color, and form without demanding a click, a swipe, or a response. This is deep rest. Let us incorporate another original story, about the wisdom of the body's own rhythms, ignored at our peril. A ferryman operated between two towns on a great river. The river had two tides. A strong, pulling tide to the sea at midday, and a gentle, pushing tide back upstream at dawn and dusk. For years, the ferryman fought the midday tide, using immense effort to row against it. He arrived exhausted, with strained muscles and blurry vision from the sweat and glare on the water. He considered this the cost of his work. One day, an old fisherman asked him, "Why do you fight the river's greatest strength? What if you worked with it?" The next day, the ferryman tried something radical. He made his journey downstream to the sea town with the midday tide, letting it carry him with minimal effort. He rested there during the turbulent afternoon hours. At dusk, he caught the gentle upstream tide back home. The journey was effortless. His muscles were relaxed, his eyes clear, seeing the beautiful banks in the soft light. He had thought his struggle was mandatory. In fact, it was born of ignoring the natural rhythm. Our bodies have tides. The midday tide of our energy is often for output, for engaged focus. The dawn and dusk tides are for gentle intake, for reflection, for repair. Forcing intense visual focus, like screen work, during the dawn or dusk tide of our personal rhythm, late at night, or first thing in the morning, is like the ferryman rowing against the current. It causes immense, unnecessary strain. Aligning demanding visual tasks with your personal midday tide, and reserving the edge of day times for the soft practices, sun gazing, palming, gentle walks, is working with your nature, not against it. This is the essence of living in accordance with Dharma, with natural law. We will close this part with a contemplation on the final jewel in this section, the intention behind the seeing. Why do you want to see clearly? Is it from a place of fear, of loss, of incapacity? Or from a place of love, for beauty, for connection, for service? Two sculptors were given the same block of marble. The first was motivated by fear, fear of poverty, fear of critics. He attacked the stone with tense, forceful blows. His vision was narrowed to the chisel's point, his eyes squinted and strained. He produced a technically correct statue, but it felt cold, rigid. The second was motivated by love. A love for the form sleeping within the stone, a love for the act of revelation itself. His movements were attentive, almost conversational. His gaze was soft, taking in the whole form as it emerged. His eyes were relaxed, wide with curiosity. He produced a statue that seemed to breathe, that drew people in. The quality of the intention changed the quality of the attention, which changed the physical experience in the body of the sculptor. Approach your eye practices not with the fear-based intention of fixing a problem, but with the love-based intention of nurturing a gift. When you do your eye wash, do it as an act of loving cleansing. When you take your powder, do it as an act of loving nourishment. When you palm your eyes, do it as an act of loving shelter. This shift in intention from fear to love may be the most powerful healing agent of all. It transforms the practice from a chore into a ceremony of care, and the body responds to this emotional climate with profound cooperation. We have now sat with emotion, beauty, digital echoes, natural rhythms, and intention. The path becomes not just a set of actions, but a way of being in relationship with your own capacity to see. Welcome back to the quiet heart of Monk's Temple. Our exploration has taken us from the physical to the emotional, from the individual jewel to the vast, reflecting net. We have understood that sight is not a solitary mechanism, but a conversation between the inner world and the outer light. Now, we arrive at a pivotal, transformative understanding from the Buddhist path, the practice of non-identification. This is the practice of seeing pain, blur, strain, or limitation not as my failing, but as a temporary phenomenon arising and passing in the field of awareness. This shift in perspective is not a denial of the experience, it is a liberation from the added suffering of ownership. It is the difference between being a wave that cries, "I am breaking," and being the ocean that knows the waves breaking is just a movement within its vastness. Let this be our theme as we continue. A child stood weeping at a window, watching a violent thunderstorm. "The sky is so angry and dark," she cried. Her grandfather sat beside her. "Come," he said softly. He took her outside, under the shelter of a deep porch. "Look up now," he instructed. Together, they watched the magnificent, terrifying display. "The lightning is not the sky," the grandfather said, his voice calm beneath the thunder. "The thunder is not the sky. The dark clouds are not the sky. They are things that happen in the sky. The sky itself is the vast, silent space that holds them all. It is never damaged by the storm. It is never truly darkened. It allows the storm to pass through." The child watched, and her perception shifted. She was no longer frightened of the sky, she was awestruck by the drama happening within it. Her tension melted. Your visual experience, the blur, the ache, the fatigue, is the storm. Your awareness, the silent, knowing space in which these sensations arise, is the sky. The practices you are learning are not just about calming the storm, though they help. Their deepest purpose is to help you rediscover that you are the sky. When you sit in palming, in darkness, you are withdrawing identification from the storm of sensation and resting as the sky. This is the heart of Vipassana, or insight meditation. You observe the sensation without becoming it. In that space of observation, healing finds a different ground, not a battle against symptoms, but a homecoming to wholeness. From this place of spacious awareness, let us revisit the practical tools, but now infused with this understanding of non-identification. Imagine your body is an alchemist's kitchen. In this kitchen, you are not the frantic cook, You are the wise master alchemist who understands processes. The powder of fennel, almond, misri, and pepper is not a magic pill. It is a carefully chosen combination of ingredients you add to the inner crucible. You observe with interest. The fennel brings a cooling effect. The almonds provide nourishing oils. The pepper ignites the transformation. You are not attached to an immediate result. You understand alchemy takes time, consistent heat, and patience. The eye exercises are not tedious drills, they are like stirring the potion in a specific, rhythmic way to ensure even blending. The screen curfew is not a deprivation, it is allowing the kitchen fire to bank down to coals so the slow, transformative work can occur overnight. When you approach your practices from this perspective, as a curious, compassionate alchemist tending a process, you remove the anxiety of the result. You engage in the action, but you rest in the awareness that orchestrates it. This is right effort, diligent action without clinging to the fruit of the action. Now, let us introduce a new, original story about the very nature of focus and how our cultural obsession with it may be a source of our strain. In the greatest library in the world, there was a librarian who believed the key to wisdom was to fully understand one single, perfect book. He would take a volume to his desk under a bright lamp and study it for hours, his nose almost touching the page. He ignored the vast, whispering halls around him. Over years, his eyes grew weak from the close work and the harsh light. The world beyond his desk became a blur. He knew his chosen book intimately, but he knew nothing else. One day, the library's ancient caretaker, nearly blind, asked him to fetch a volume from a high, distant shelf. The librarian had to walk deep into the stacks. He had to look up, to scan labels, to use his peripheral vision. The light was diffused and soft. For the first time in years, he was using his eyes differently. A strange sense of relief washed over him. The caretaker, sensing his shift, said, "Wisdom is not in any one book. It is in the relationship between them. It is in the space between the shelves. Your eyes hurt because you have asked them to do only one thing, to tunnel. Let them be hallway guides sometimes, let them be seekers of spaciousness. The library is not a prison of text, it is a cathedral of light and space held between words." Our modern work demands the single volume focus. The healing comes in deliberately, daily, asking our eyes to be library guides, to look into the distance, to soften, to take in the whole room, the whole sky. This is not a break from seeing. It is a return to the full spectrum of visual function, which includes spacious, unfocused awareness. In Zen Buddhism, this is sometimes called soft eyes or open awareness. It is a way of seeing that includes everything without grasping at anything. Let us weave in a personal reflection on time and patience, the two most gentle healers. I once cared for a bonsai tree, a miniature pine in a shallow pot. Its growth was agonizingly slow. Every day, I would check for new needles, bend a wire, prune with tiny scissors. I cared for it with intense, focused attention. In the same garden, a great oak tree grew. I rarely looked at it directly, it was just there, massive and slow. One stressful period, my eyes were particularly bad. I sat in the garden, unable to read or focus. In my frustration, my gaze fell on the oak. I didn't look at it, I sort of leaned my vision against it. I took in its sheer, patient presence. It did not care about my hurry. It had taken 100 years to grow that broad. That afternoon, I did not touch my bonsai. A week later, I noticed something. The bonsai, under my less frantic, more patient attention, had actually put out tender new growth more successfully. My relationship with time had changed. I had absorbed some of the oak's pace. My eye exercises, which I had been doing with a stopwatch and a goal, became more like visiting the oak. A slow, patient, non-goal-oriented ritual. The improvement in my comfort was not faster, but it was deeper, more stable. Healing the eyes is the work of the oak, not the bonsai. It cannot be rushed with daily scrutiny. It requires the patience of seasons. The practices are the consistent rain and sun you provide, not the daily measuring of the trunk. Finally, let us contemplate a profound tool, the practice of visual gratitude. This goes beyond seeing beauty. It is the active, silent thanking of the faculty of sight itself. Each night before sleep, after you have palmed your eyes and are in darkness, try this. In your mind's eye, recall one thing you saw that day that brought you a moment of peace or joy. It could be the color of your tea in a cup, the smile on a loved one's face, the pattern of shadow on the floor. Relive that visual moment. Then, silently, direct a thought of gratitude to your eyes themselves. Thank you for allowing me to receive that. Thank you for your service today, even when you were tired. Thank you for being my window to this world. This is a radical act of friendliness, of metta, toward a part of yourself you may have been berating as weak or failing. You are changing the relationship from one of criticism to one of partnership. The body listens to these quiet messages. Gratitude relaxes the nervous system. It tells the body, this part is loved and appreciated, and the body often responds by sending more resources, more healing energy, to that loved part. It is a closing of the day not with a tally of visual failures, but with a blessing for the visual gift. Here in the lasting quiet of Monk's Temple, we arrive at the threshold. We have gathered many threads. The stillness of the sky holding the storm, the patient rhythm of the oak, the alchemist's gentle curiosity, the librarian's spacious gaze. These are not merely techniques for better eyesight. They are pathways to a different way of inhabiting your life, a way rooted in the core of Buddhist wisdom, mindfulness, compassion, and a deep understanding of interconnection. The final step is not an addition, but a release. It is the weaving of these threads into the simple, ordinary fabric of your day until they are no longer separate practices, but the very texture of how you see. Imagine your day as a gentle river. You are not fighting the current on the bank, frantically building remedies. You are floating in it, allowing its natural flow to carry you, making small, graceful adjustments with your hands. Your morning begins not with reaching for a phone, but with that first conscious breath. The ritual of the first dew, touching the corners of your eyes, is your initial, gentle stroke in the water, aligning yourself with the flow. It takes 10 seconds, but it sets a tone of reverence for the day's sight. You take your nourishing powder not as a medicine, but as a morning toast to your inner soil. You drink it with the intention, may this support the whole garden. As you move through your work, you remember the ferryman and the tides. You engage in focused tasks during your personal midday, but you honor the rhythm. Every 25 minutes, you pause. You don't just close your eyes. You become the sky for a moment. You look out a window and practice the librarian's spacious gaze, letting your vision expand to the farthest cloud. You are stirring the alchemist's pot. Your meals become a quiet celebration of the garden of chroma, feeding the jewels in Indra's net. When evening comes, you enact the screen curfew not as a rule, but as a gift of fallow time. You light a real candle if you can. You sit for 5 minutes in the practice of Tritaka, not to improve your eyesight, but to remember that you are the awareness behind the flame, behind the eyes that watch it. The tears that come are a welcome cleansing. You may place a cool slice of cucumber over your eyes, feeling not just a physical chill, but the symbolic cooling of the day's mental friction. And finally, in bed, you palm your eyes. In that warm, dark sanctuary, you perform the ritual of the thankful lamp. You offer one moment of visual gratitude. You acknowledge the stormy sensations if they are there, the ache, the blur, and you remember, I am the sky for this. This, too, is passing. Then you let go completely, allowing sleep to be the ultimate palming, the deepest healing darkness. This flow is not a checklist. It is a melody. Some days you will hum only a few bars. That is enough. The power is in the gentle return, not in perfect performance. The young mapmaker, Kalen, did not perfect every practice the first day. He began with one thing, the soft sun at dusk. Then he added the powder. Slowly, his fear of the uncharted began to soften. He discovered that as he cared for the instrument of his sight, his mind began to map a new territory, the interior landscape of patience and presence. His blurry lines did not just sharpen. They ceased to define his world. He found a clarity that was not about ink, but about understanding. This is the true promise of this path. The Buddha's teachings guide us to the end of suffering, not the end of sensory experience. Your eyes may strengthen, your vision may clarify. But the greater gift is that you will relate to your sight, and to all your senses, differently. You will move from being a fearful owner of a failing tool to being a compassionate guardian of a sacred window. You will see the world not just with your eyes, but from the still, spacious awareness that watches through them. The journey does not end here. It simply becomes your own. You carry the quiet of Monk's temple within you now. You know how to polish the glass, to tend the soil, to still the waters, to be the sky. So go forward. See the world. See its blur and its sharpness, its storms and its sunsets. See it all with the soft, knowing eyes of the oak, with the patient heart of the alchemist, with the grateful grace of one who understands. The light outside and the awareness inside are, in the end, not two. Thank you for sharing this long and peaceful journey. May your vision, in every sense of the word, be clear, kind, and deeply awake. Be well, until we meet again.